It's a stabbing pain. It comes suddenly, without warning. I don't know how many doctors I've seen. Migraine? Migraine medications didn't help. Tension headaches? Please. I'm fine most of the time. But then it hits. It hits right behind my eye. It attacks me like some tiny demon with an ice pick, stabbing my eye. It comes without warning, without pity, and without remorse. It attacked me in the car once. I crashed into a parked car. I got sued. When it attacks, my eyes water and my nose runs. I can't see. All I feel is the stabbing, angry pain trying to pop out my eye. It happened once at my job. I screamed. Everyone thought I was crazy. All it takes is one time doing something out of the norm and I'm labelled as crazy. No one understands. I can't sleep. I can't work. I can't drive. I just wait for the demon to attack. I tried medication. I did everything they told me. Pain medications, seizure medications, yoga, meditation, everything. I tried drugs, all of them. I tried marijuana, Percocet, even heroin. My demon just laughs at drugs. I got caught with Percocet. My parents think I'm a criminal. It's not my fault, it's the demon. It's always the demon. He screeches. He's coming. I don't know when, I don't know where, but he always comes back. The anticipation is almost worse than the stab. All day, I just wait. I just wait for the demon. Sometimes he comes, sometimes he doesn't. I think he just laughs at me. I didn't ask for this. One doctor said it was an ice pick headache. Well, that's what it feels like. A demon with an ice pick. A demon stabbing me. I hate him. I thought I could stab him back. I didn't want to go without a fight, you know. So I got my own ice pick. I got my own ice pick and sliced out my eye. Can you imagine plucking out your own eye? But it didn't help. It didn't help. I don't know what else to do. Suicide? Maybe. But maybe I can get rid of the demon by finding him a new home. Maybe he'd like someone else. Maybe he'll move out and I'll be free. I'll get my life back. I know it's not fair, but it's not fair that I have to go through this. It's not fair. Maybe if someone else feels a nice pick through their eye, they'll understand. Maybe the demon will go to them. Anyway, that's why you're here. I'm sorry, I really am, but I don't know what else to do. Please, stop struggling. It's only going to make things worse. So, I've been with my girlfriend Chloe for the last 2 years. We're in a really happy relationship, and I've even considered marrying her in the near future. The only issue I have is she is constantly comparing me to her ex-boyfriend, Mark. It's really annoying, and it's kind of starting to hurt my feelings. If I ever do something wrong, then she'd always point out that Mark wouldn't have made that mistake. I know they were childhood sweethearts and were together for over 10 years, but I really think she needs to stop doing this. She's always giving me the silent treatment afterwards when I tell her to stop, which makes me feel like I did something wrong. It is really starting to get on my nerves, so I decided to organise a meeting between the three of us and make her choose which of us she wants. I knew she'd be home late on Sunday evening, so I decided that was the perfect day for the meeting. Me and Mark were sitting at the kitchen table when she walked in. I could see the look of shock on her face when she saw me and him together. She fainted to the ground, and at that moment I knew she wanted Mark. I decided I'd stand aside and let them be together. I placed Mark's rotting corpse back into his grave and then carefully lowered Chloe on top of him before closing the coffin. Started throwing dirt on top of the grave so that no one would ever know. I could hear Chloe's screams of what I could assume were joy as she finally reunited with the love of her life. I felt horrible that we were breaking up, but I didn't want to stand in the way of true love. He's gagging on his own vomit. I drive my fist into his back. He's not dying now. The force makes him cough. I'm blocking his airways. I did the math. Force feeding him that many tablets should have been just enough to make him sick, but not kill him. I guess he's more pathetic than I thought. Next, I take a rope and fasten it to the rafters on the ceiling. I fashion a noose out of the other end and hook it around his neck, making it painfully difficult to stand normally. But he can just about breathe if he stands on his tiptoes. Eventually, I get it right, but he doesn't seem grateful. I laugh at him, spitting in his face. He takes a ragged breath.
Let me down, you're fucking sick.
That's exactly what I am. Who would have thought that Mr. Lowe would have been such a good judge of character? After an hour of watching him snort and snuffle like a farmyard pig, I let him down. After catching his breath, he tells me,
My wife knows where I am. The police are going to be here any minute.
So full of misguided hope. I'd already told Mrs. Lowe that I'd been taking care of her husband this afternoon, that I had a wonderful set of surprises for him. She thanked me and gave me a freshly baked apple pie for my troubles. I consulted my list. Waterboarding was next. How fun. I'd always wanted to see how that looked in real life. We spent a lovely hour with him, gargling and spluttering.
See,
I tell him brightly,
it's basically backwards swimming.
There's just one final thing on my list. I get to use my biggest, favourite knife for this one. I slowly trace it down the veins in his forearm, not too deep. I want him conscious.
Mr. Lowe,
I start, formally.
Do you know that you've taken 6, almost 7 lives, both directly and indirectly?
He looks up at me, weak and pale. A dawning realisation starts across his face.
Sally Anderson, 9 years old when you killed her. Her mother took an overdose a year later.
He starts to deny it, but I interrupt.
Timothy Castus, 8 years old when you stabbed him. His brother hanged himself just last year.
He just looks at me.
Ben Wallace, 15 when you murdered him. His father drowned himself 2 years ago.
He has nothing to say.
Finally, Melinda Lowe, you started beating her in her first year of your marriage. You know she slit her wrist 3 times over the course of your married life, but you've always managed to find her in time.
He hangs his head, muttering something about me being a psychopath. I'm not a psychopath. He had it right the first time. Professional sicko. Maybe professional sadist. That sounds a bit better. At your service. Available to hire. For a price, of course. Discounts available, if they deserve it. Mrs. Lowe, well, she only had to pay an apple pie. How to hide bodies. How to clean up blood. Penalty for homicide. My entire search history is filled with this crap. It must be my wife. Yeah, I know for sure. I deleted my entire search history 2 years ago, but she keeps putting them back in. She still isn't over what happened that night. Do not turn around. Seriously, he's right behind you. In fact, he's reading this very warning over your shoulder. The fact that you're still alive and reading is proof that my experiment has worked. It wasn't easy figuring out how to cast a protection spell over the sheer number of people that he's after right now. And since he can be just so many places at once, that's a lot of people. Keep reading, he's getting angry, but he can't touch you as long as your eyes are here. Once you get to the end of this message, the spell will be complete and you can do whatever you want after that. He won't even be able to show himself to you at that point. Trust me, no one wants to see that anyway. All smiles, with razor teeth, flaming eyes, needle claws, enough to drive anyone mad. He's been following you for a while now, by the way, watching you sleep, savouring the coming moment when he would finally be able to bleed you out. If you look down at the foot of your bed a little more often, you might have seen the 3 red eyes hungrily sweeping over you when the darkness was at its deepest. The eyes are the only part most of us can see. The rest of him only shows up when he finally touches you. Ignore that itch. He's trying to distract you. And if you take your eyes off this screen, before you reach the end, you're done for. I worked for a long time,
trying to figure out how to distribute the spell. I finally managed to combine technology and magic in a way that I didn't think was possible. I designed a word processing app, and I could administrate any spell at my disposal just by writing out a document. The more complex the spell, the longer the document needs to be, and the recipient must read the entire message. Otherwise, the spell will only work while you keep your eyes on the message. You're almost there, you're doing great. This thing's been around for a long time, you know, all the way back to the first days of man. In fact, he killed so many, terrified so many more, until the Egyptian mystics finally found a spell to keep him at bay. A pretty complex spell too. My app needed a document about 600 words long to properly cast it, but ever since they figured it out, he hasn't had free reign like he used to. Now, he needs a servant to cast a counter spell on any victim before he takes them. That spell's not nearly as complex though, only needs about 400 words. And by the way, the end of that sentence just now was word 450. They're all yours, master. Bon appetit.
I watched, unable to muster the courage to jump in after her, as my sister fell down the cliff edge. My voice was harsh from shouting her name, and I saw that her body was submerged in the water. I was screaming for help, for anyone to come and make it stop, to end the nightmare. The picture in my head of her, finally surfacing on the water, unmoving, haunted me. Her long black hair lay in a waterfall of seaweed. My mind was numb. I was numb. The whole world around me was just a distant noise in my ear as I focused on nothing but her, lying there as the paramedics appeared over the beach. She couldn't be saved. I stood on the cliff edge, watching the scene unfold. I woke up. I've had that reoccurring nightmare for a year now. A year since she died. You'd think it might get better, but not in my case. She comes every night, without fail. Some night she just sits on the end of my bed, humming softly as her long black hair floats in wisps around her face. Others, she is sat on the chair next to me, silent, facing away from me. The most terrifying thing is when I wake up with a crushing pressure on my chest and find her sitting on my legs, pinning me down. I never see her face. At first, she was just a faint glow, and it was comforting, but each day her figure got stronger, and the vivid colours of her hair and dress became easier to see. She is almost complete now. Just one more night, and she will look like my sister again. Tomorrow is the anniversary of her death. Tomorrow, I might see her face. When I woke up, the morning sun penetrated my curtains, and I got up. I walked down to my sister's grave and placed a bunch of lilies on the gravestone. They were always her favourite. I got into bed and drifted off to sleep. As usual, I was awoken at 3 o'clock by a glow I could see through my eyelids. Opening my eyes, I saw my sister standing at the edge of my bed, facing me. Her eyes were sunken and her lips were cracked from the salt water, although strangely, I felt comforted. She never spoke, just led me on a path out of the front door towards the cliff edge. Her intentions only became clear once she grabbed a hold of my arms. Her eyes filled with fear as she jumped, pulling me with her. I hit the side of the rocks multiple times and fell into the water, paralysed. The surface drifted away above my head as her shiny, long, black hair covered my body. It was quite peaceful, actually. After all, we all die in the end. I have to get out. The walls, twisted rebar and cracked concrete seem to stretch on forever. I can't remember where I am, why I came to be here. I can't even remember my last name. All I know is, if I get out, I will live. And if I don't, I have to get out. I can hear it from behind me, that accursed chuckle echoing down the hallway. Oh God, it's coming for me. An exit to the right. My jog becomes a sprint once again, a parade ground drum booming in my ears. So close, I'm yards away, feet from the door. Suddenly, ground, my face smacks into the dirtied concrete hard enough to feel something break. I turn, looking for an object that tripped me. Blood gushes from my nose, staining my shirt and pants, but I don't have time to care. One thought takes control of all others. One motive guides my body with an otherwise unnatural will. I have to get out. In my frenzied state, it takes me a moment to focus on the figure limping slowly towards me, to realise the danger. He's tall, thin as a corpse, and white as a sheet. His dark suit is immaculate. His long limbs seem to stretch beyond the right proportions. A long black cane, topped with a metal figurehead, is clenched tight in his fist. Two long fingers overlapsing the pommel like a bad Halloween glove. Wispy white hair cascades around his balding cranium, draping over his shoulders like unkept vines. His face is the worst, with few features that seem to only highlight the wrongness of his absent ones. Twin ovals set deep into two high eye sockets. Twin pits from the abyss stare into me, into my soul. His smile is too large, too wrong. Overcrowded teeth line a lipless maw that stretches the length of his head. Saliva leaks through the gaps in his teeth, caught by the polite tapping of a handkerchief in his free hand. The fiend takes a few steps towards me, his gait awkward, like a teenager that hasn't quite come to the grips with a growth spurt. I back up, turn, furiously crawling towards the door, crawling towards my salvation. I grasp the handle, pull madly at the doorknob. The door swings open to reveal nothing. A wall, like something out of a Ludwig comic strip, lies before me. Crudely drawn on the surface is a pictogram of a smiling face, surrounded by tally marks that are too numerous to count. The pigment dried as a dark brown, but I know its original colour would have been red. A titter, a mad giggle from behind me. Awkward footsteps, helped by a cane, close the already negligible distance between us. Oh God, I can't get out. It started with me browsing the curly hair subreddit. My wife always struggled with frizz, so I lurked there to get some ideas for a hair care gift package. By chance, I saw she had posted a selfie, along with the caption, "The lion's mane behaved itself today." She was sitting across from me in the lounge, eyes fixed on her phone. I clicked on the post and gave it an award. A few seconds later, her face lit up.
Everything okay?
I asked.
Just some funny messages in the group chat.
She answered. From there, I stalked her profile every day. Anytime the two of us were in the lounge, I'd award her posts and watch her smile and kick her feet around, excited. This insider information helped me nail her birthday gift and gave me ideas for our anniversary. It felt like I'd turned on the cheat codes to our marriage. But after I lost my job, her posts took a turn. She began browsing the marriage relationship advice subs, and after 3 weeks of me bombing countless interviews, she asked for tips over dead bedrooms, like I needed a reminder that I couldn't perform. It was hard. Not my penis, sure, but trying not to reveal that I knew she shared intimate details about our relationship with strangers online. But if I told her, she'd just make a new account, and I'd lose my window into her innermost thoughts. Her original posts had gained some traction, which meant tons of users asked for an update. Then she posted about how the situation had gotten worse. She wrote about how I snapped at her over every little thing, and even started lashing out. The tension continued to swell. Soon came the ultimate gut punch. A confession post entitled, "I am terrified of my husband." Can you imagine what would have happened if a Reddit user went radio silent after that bombshell? It would have caused a huge scandal.
An investigation, even. I calmed things down by cooking a few romantic meals, and I told her I was deeply sorry for dumping my frustrations on her. I even bought the damn hair care package. This made her post some positive updates. She wrote that, although we had a long way to go, things were definitely looking up, that we'd be okay. But the fact is, things aren't okay, and they'll never be okay again. Now I know what she really thinks about me, so I searched for subs that she was still actively participating in, subs like this one, and then I sat down to write my first ever post. She's sitting opposite me as I type this. There's a knife under my armchair, and I already know how I'll dispose of the body. Now it's just a case of her waiting to read my confession and realise what's about to happen. So if you're reading this, Maria, it's time. It's time to look up.
He came for me in the winter. Now that I think of it, he would never have come at any other time. You see, he likes to play. He likes to have fun with his charges. It must be awfully boring otherwise. His job, that is. I knew it was my turn. Saw the warning signs. As I said, the sick bastard likes to have fun. The first signs are usually so small one might miss them, like whispers in an empty room, a flit in the corner of your eye, a shadow in a hallway. Signs so minute it takes those experienced with him to notice them.
He'll fix your feet so you can't walk. He'll fix your jaw so you can't talk.
Then, paranoia. Someone is watching you. It's in your closet. He's hiding under your bed. He's coming for you, and there's nothing you can do.
Well, what is this that I can't see, with ice cold hands taking hold of me?
Paranoia is where I reckon he has the most fun. I personally think he just lets it do its own thing and just watches his chosen tear their own lives apart. This can stretch on for years, decades. Sanity unwinds, madness reigns supreme.
Oh, how you're treating me. You've closed my eyes so I can't see.
Time to time he may honour you by showing himself, but of course he won't just pop in and introduce himself. Where's the fun in that? No, he prefers to only be seen in partial glimpses. A slim shadow in an alley, a flash of well-trimmed suit, a hand, spider-like in its length of digits, carving your name in the steam while you relax in the shower. A wheezy sign from the foot of your bed as you drift off to sleep. He doesn't care about age, laughs aloud at the offer of money. Where he takes you, neither matters.
No wealth, nor land, nor silver, nor gold. Nothing satisfies him but your soul.
He has existed as long as man, and by his very nature means that he will outlast all of us. He has many names, some old as language itself. He's been called the Slender Man, Phantios, Malak Mavat, Izel Murte, the Reaper of the Abyss. He is Abandon, the Fallen Angel. He's the Last Horseman, the rider on a pale horse.
When God is cold and the devil takes hold, he will have mercy upon your soul.
I can hear him calling for me, his cruel titter like a cross between a child's and a fiddle. He knows where I hide, but he doesn't mind, and why should he?
The children played, the preacher preached, time and mercy are out of your reach. He stalks this place, can't you hear? Old death, won't you spare me another year?
I'm a good liar. I have been my whole life. I'm 12 years old. Or am I 13? Or 11? I'm such a good liar that I could convincingly tell you anything. It was my father who first taught me how to lie. Look them dead in the eyes, son. Don't blink or look to one side. Dead in the eyes. Speak calmly. Add in some details, ones that aren't important. That makes things look more believable. So every day, I concoct a new adventure to tell my classmates. They lap it up. They believe I live in some big mansion, that I only wear tattered clothes because my parents don't want me to be spoiled. They don't know I actually live in a caravan, in the field behind it. Last week, I told them that my parents had taken me off to a ski resort for the weekend. We met Prince William up there. He loves skiing. I was really bad at it, but Will, he said I could call him that, said it doesn't matter, because he thought I was really funny. I must have fallen over right in front of him about 8 times. I reckon we're going to be invited to dinner again at Windsor Castle soon. I liked that story. It's another thing my father taught me about lying. You can't always paint yourself as the hero. Sometimes you have to be bad at things. Today, I'm telling an even better lie. They opened an aquarium up, especially for me, I say, breathing evenly. My parents just knew that I'd always dreamed of swimming with sharks. I looked directly at them. I don't know if you've all seen, but they have those little orange fish at the aquarium too, like Nemo. I've got a stuffed one from the gift shop, and I'll get some other real ones soon. It's all in the details. The little, inconsequential details. Anyway, the shark swimming went a little bit wrong. The shark tried to attack me, but I fought it off. I shrug nonchalantly and bask in their awe. One girl asked me if she can touch the red gash across my face. It was my father who had taught me how to lie. I have to be believable when I explain away the injuries he gives me, or he'll kill me. I'm a good liar, but a very bad boy.
On the last night of my honeymoon, my husband, Ricky, and I were soaking in the beach resort's outdoor hot tub. It was December, you see, and there were maybe only 5 rooms occupied in the whole resort. Although the fire pit was burning hot and bright one lot over, no one but us was outside. My new husband and I felt ballsy and awesome and grown up for braving the near freezing temperature to relax in the hot tub. "This is so amazing," I said on a long sigh. I sat back against the jet and let it pummel my lower back. "I know," said Ricky, stretching his arms out behind us and craning his head toward the sky. "You can see every star up there. You don't see that in the city." A gust blew over the hot tub and whirled the steam around, creating mini tornadoes. On the other side of the dunes behind us, the ocean slammed against the shore and hissed as it receded. I smiled, blissful. "Our friends are going to be so jealous when we tell them about this," I said. "I wish we could get a picture of us so I could post this on Facebook." I followed. Yeah, was Ricky's absent-minded reply. "But we don't have our camera on us or our phones or anything out here. So..." My husband didn't care to show off like I did. "Yeah." I sat silent for a moment. "I might run back to the room really quickly to get my phone." No. He put his hand on my arm. "We're on our honeymoon, not to mention a much needed vacation. We promised we were going to cut ourselves off from the rest of the world for a week, just a week, didn't we? Let our friends use their imaginations when we tell them about it, and let us enjoy this moment. We only go for a honeymoon once." I sighed and sat back against his outstretched arm. I closed my eyes. We stayed out there, not talking, until the timer for the jets went off, and then we scurried back into the warm beacon of our building. The next morning, after we'd been awake for a while, Ricky noticed something poking under our door. Thinking it was the bill of our balance for the stay, he went over to retrieve it. He turned and walked over to me. His expression was disturbed, and he had gone pale. He was holding a Polaroid picture of us from the night before. On the white part at the bottom, scrawled in black Sharpie, were the words,
"Here you go."
It was taken from behind.
I died 8 years ago. It wasn't particularly tragic or unusual, just a car accident. I don't blame the man who hit me. He was speeding because his wife was in labour and there was black ice on the road. He lost control of the car and I lost my life. It's not his fault, I know that. I'm not cruel, I'm not vengeful. If anything, I'm the opposite. You see, I don't have any family left, and I had lost my few friends around that time. When it was time for my funeral, the only people who came was my boss and the family who killed me. The wife held her newborn daughter close to her chest. I hated my boss, and the cemetery was awfully lonely, so I followed the family home. Lily may as well have been my own flesh and blood. She was sweet and bright, and also very small. She had trouble sleeping if someone wasn't rocking her crib, and her parents were so tired. After they put her to bed, it was easy for me to rock her crib for her. I didn't get tired. I could help her. As the years passed, Jack and Laurie realised they weren't alone in the house. It didn't take them long from there to make a connection between my funeral and when I had showed up. And I had never been violent, so they weren't afraid or angry. They started to burn candles on the anniversary of my death. They left an empty chair for meals and holidays. I really felt like a member of the family. Someone is trying to force the door. It's Laurie's ex. He's obsessive. He's angry. He's going to hurt the family. My family. The thing about ghosts is that the more offerings you get, the stronger you become. I'd been enjoying my candles, trinkets, and even the occasional food item for the past 5 years. I was strong from that. The knife feels warm in my hand, a shock of heat against the ice of my skin. Laurie, Jack, and Lily are my family. I care about them, and they're not going to join me yet.
Hello, beautiful. If you can read this, please listen to my confession. You probably don't know me, but I've known you for a very long time, and I don't know if I should say this yet, but I love you. I do. I love you. I do. I really do. I love you so much that I built your entire world for you, so you may live on and on and on. I built it just after I met you. You were so beautiful lying there, with your dreamy eyes tenderly shut. Your near translucent skin, which seemed to be growing paler and paler by the second. The way your limbs were twisted, delicately mangled at the joints, to form such an unearthly vision of vulnerability. Oh, that must have been such a long fall. Not only did the building possess such incredible height, but I know how the most glorious of angels must fall the furthest. Oh, my angel, my contorted angel on the pavement. Your soft flesh had been scraped away in just the right places, revealing your inner body's artistic formation. No one could ever appreciate such a sight but I. No one but I could ever admire the curvature of your neck, bent at a perfect 90 degrees to the right and twisted around twice, and only twice. As soon as I saw you there, I just had to reach out and touch you. I shivered in anticipation as I traced my fingers down your body, right to where it was beginning to split. It stunned me with excitement, making me wonder at every second whether you'd burst apart. And I carried you. I was ever so careful, making sure I didn't damage what was left of your body. Some fragments of your skull fell out on the way, but I was quick to push them back in. Don't worry, you were still in one piece when I brought you back home. I brought you to lay on my bed, shattered arms across your chest. You looked just like the pretty corpses in the old fairy tales, even more so when I dressed you up in my mother's wedding gown. I took out my spell book, ready to resurrect you. But no, the time wasn't right. I was afraid I would frighten you away, so I created your afterlife, one just like the world you knew. Then I kept loving you, you and your wounds, for what could be eternity. But I think you're ready to be revived now, to gaze upon the blackened eyes of me, your saviour from below. You will live again, with love and beauty you will never die, as your wounds will always be fresh, and your bones just as mangled as they were when I met you. You'll be able to feel my touch for the first time, our fluids mingling together, your cold blood. Don't worry, my love, I'll be just as gentle as I've always been.
I know when my husband is cheating on me. It's funny, something like 60% of marriages end in infidelity, but you never think it'll be yours. There are so many articles on it too. How to tell, what signs to look for. Is he spending too much time at the office, or just working too hard? Crappy episodes on daytime TV, Some silly girl sobbing as it's all revealed. These articles, shows, dramas, they're for weaker women. I knew the moment my husband didn't love me anymore. Oh, it'll start small. He'll smile more, for no reason. He'll laugh at little things she says or does, things that he would never in a million years found funny if you said them. And it only gets worse. His face will light up like a sun when he sees her. And he will see her. You can't stop it. She's everywhere in his life, invasive, like a cancer, or a leech, sucking all of his attention and love away from you. And then, even worse, his friends, your friends, will notice. They'll tell you they've never seen him like this before, how happy he is. It's enough to make you sick, to make anyone sick. And finally, he'll tell you that he's never felt love like this before, that he doesn't know how he lived without her. Well, something has to be done, obviously. I love my husband. I'm not having some little temptress steal him away from me. What kind of woman would I be then? No. So I took matters into my own hands. Thank God she's still little. I don't think I could have drowned her that easily if she could just walk away. My stepfather hated everything my mother loved. Not just me or her hobbies, probably himself too, but everything that made her happy. But Apollo, he hated more than anything. I was 5 when me and my mum got Apollo, a skinny, skittish puppy at the time. He was patient with me. Toddlers aren't always nice, but he worshipped Mum. The little I remember of that time was happiness. I was 7 when that man moved in. He didn't tolerate happiness in this house. He kicked Apollo for being too loud, and soon kicked me as well. After almost losing a finger, he learned not to hit us when Apollo was there. If he had known that I had noticed that he feared the dog, he would have beat me for noticing. He hated weakness, and it was always someone else's fault if he didn't like how he was feeling. After a while, he started ordering me to herd Apollo into another room and close the door when he wanted to beat my mother. Apollo would bark, howl and claw the door when it happened. The neighbours called animal protection 3 times, but never called the police. Some dogs can open doors. Apollo wasn't one of them. I did not kill a man when I was 8 years old. All I did was open the door.
The clock struck midnight. I was on my laptop in my bedroom, browsing through YouTube videos. However, my browsing stopped when my phone vibrated. I saw that I received a text message from my friend, Ben. "Hey man, I'm outside by the back door. Can you let me in?" I knew he was lying. For the past few weekends, he'd been messing around with me. One weekend he told me he'd parked in my cul-de-sac, when in reality, he was in his bedroom. The following weekend, he told me he was coming over to hang out. When I came outside to greet him in his car, he floored it out of my neighbourhood. I wasn't going to let him get me this time. I sent a reply back. "I know you're just messing with me again." He immediately replied, No, I'm being serious this time. I'm by the back door." I placed my phone down and continued my search. About a minute later, my phone vibrated again. "I'm downstairs." "Ben, you can't troll me 3 weekends in a row. However, I'll give you an A for effort." I placed my phone down again. I wasn't going to play his little game. As I was about to continue my search, I started hearing something coming from the deafening silence of my dark house. I faced the doorway behind me and listened closely. It sounded like footsteps, silent footsteps, walking around downstairs. It was nerve-wracking. I couldn't believe it. Was my mind tricking me? Or was Ben actually in my house? I grabbed my phone. Are you joking with me, man?" I continued to listen as my phone vibrated once more. "No, I told you I was downstairs, but you didn't believe me." I was quite relieved that it was him, but I was pissed off that he broke into my house. I could hear him walking around still downstairs as I waited for him to come up to my bedroom. I grabbed my phone again.
Are you not going to come upstairs? I can hear you walking around down there. Just come up already.
I sent a message and waited for him to respond. I was starting to get a little annoyed after a minute of waiting. I got up from my bed and went to the doorway, proceeding to shout downstairs.
Get your ass up here already, stop fucking around.
I sat back on my bed as I began to hear him walk upstairs. Suddenly, my phone vibrated again. It was a text from Ben.
You know I was fucking with you, right?
My heart sunk. I looked at the doorway to see my killer smiling at me. My damnation came in the form of a bottle. No, not like that. When I was a child, my best friend lived next to a little junkyard. Great place for a kid to hang out, a junkyard, full of mystery and exciting discoveries. And if you find anything nice, nobody minds if you take it, except your parents, obviously. Well, not my friend's mum. Most of their bowls and plates came from that junkyard. But anyway, one day a bunch of us were hanging out, dismantling a car. Some of us might not have been interested in the parts. I just thought breaking stuff off was great. When we'd got the engine apart everywhere, we set work on the interior. Under one of the seats was a little glass bottle, full of some green, bubbly liquid. Curiosity trumped hygiene in those days. I uncorked it and sniffed it. The smell was pleasant, minty, a little floral. One kid, Jackie, dared me to drink it. It was a double dog dare, so of course I had to. The taste was also pleasant, and it warmed me on the way down. My body was filled with a strange, pleasant tingling. Nothing else happened, not until later that night. First effect, I couldn't sleep. I haven't needed sleep since. It's alright, I get a lot done. Second effect, a month later, I started to cough things up. I was playing alone in the woods and I hacked up some blood. Then there were chunks in the blood. Then I was puking. The entirety of my coiled long intestine came snaking up as I sat there, quivering, tears on my cheeks, struggling to breathe, literally puking my guts up. My mouth seemed to unhinge like a snake's to accommodate my lungs. My heart was on my sleeve. The blood stain would never come out if I hadn't abandoned the clothes I was wearing. The police searched frantically for a missing person, but never found a thing. I wasn't empty when I finished though. New organs built up inside me. I could feel them. I could see them when I closed my eyes. Nameless lumps and spirals springing out of nothing. Third effect. 2 months later, I began to crave the water. I can't possibly describe the feeling of thirsty skin, but it was desperate thirst. I left my parents' house one night and walked until I came to a swamp. I moved in. The murky, bug-filled waters feel like a home now, as they did all those years ago. I sit under the water, watching the fish and salamanders get eaten by herons, looking at the surface, waiting for my prey. I'm sure you know what the fourth effect was. I'm typing this out on the new cell phone that I got off my latest victim. She was delicious. She smelled like fresh melons. Heather was at her friend Jenny's house one afternoon. It was just after school and Jenny's parents hadn't arrived home from work yet. It was just the two of them, and they were engrossed in a board game. Heather was having a good time, except they were playing in a room adjacent to Jenny's parents' bedroom. And every now and then Heather would glance up through the open door of that bedroom to see a little girl doll sitting up on the bed. Its eyes appeared to be staring at them. She tried to ignore it, but over time it started to get to her. "I'm sorry," she said, "but I can't concentrate. That doll on the bed over there is giving me the creeps." Jenny replied, "Oh, no problem." She went to the room and closed the door to calm Heather down. Then the two friends resumed their game. It hadn't been long, however, before Heather glanced up again. The door was open once again, and again the doll appeared to be staring at them. Jenny couldn't understand it. She could swear that nobody else was home, and there was no way the door had opened by itself. Struggling, she went up to the bedroom and closed the door, this time making sure it clicked shut. but again and again they would check the door and find it wide open. Heather was starting to get very scared. Finally, Jenny had enough of this. She went into the bedroom, grabbed the doll and threw it into the closet, slamming it shut. She then slammed the bedroom door behind her and they resumed their game. For a while things appeared to be going well, but then Heather glanced up one last time. All of a sudden she stood up and said, "Goodbye," and ran home as fast as she could. This time when Jenny looked up, she saw the bedroom door only slightly ajar with a chair propped up behind it. And sitting on the chair, peeking through the opening at them, was the doll. I don't remember much about my childhood, like most people. Those memories are always vague, and eventually you realise whatever you remember is probably just a reconstructed memory. You don't have much choice in the matter, and you're usually convinced that your memory would never fail you. The first memory I have is when I was 5. I'm not sure if it's real or not, but that's when I think I met Michael. I never had any friends, so I was glad when I met him. He called me Jack, and I liked it. As uncertain as I am if I remember our first encounter, there is no doubting the strong bond we immediately formed. I won't bore you with all the details of what we did every day for the past few years, but I will outline some of the things we did together to assure even the most sceptical of you listening of our friendship. Michael, being a slightly effeminate child, didn't have many friends at school either. He was bullied, and the highlight of his day was coming home and sharing a cup of tea with me, all the while telling me of his woes and lessening his burden. The tea, unlike my words of consolation, was make-believe. Another one of his favourite activities was cutting my hair. He would style it in all sorts of ways, and I enjoyed each and every one of them. Fortunately for him, my hair grew inexplicably fast, and he often got a chance to restyle it. There was one thing that constantly strained out our relationship though. Don't get me wrong, Michael and I had absolutely no hard feelings towards each other. It was his parents. I don't think they approved of me. I couldn't tell you why, even if I tried. It wasn't just disapproval. I began to think they hated me. The longer our friendship lasted, the worse it got. It pains me to even think about it, so I don't dwell on this for long. As quickly as our relationship had initially flourished, it began to diminish after just 2 years. Michael grew to become a stocky football player, and I remained exactly the same as before, scrawny and completely incapable of competing athletically. He made new friends and started to ignore me. This hurt me a lot, especially since I was there for him in his time of need. His abandoning me was the last thing I expected, and it hit me hard. I felt like I had no one left in the world. As I sit in the corner of the room and write this, I can see Michael and his friends watching TV. Sometimes it seems like he notices me and looks my way, but I know better. I've now accepted my fate. He created me, but he forgot to destroy me. My father is the scariest man I've ever known, and when armed with a bottle of beer, he reaches nightmare levels. Just the crackle of his belt or rise in his voice was enough to make me shake like a leaf. One night, while I struggled to get comfortable in bed from the bruises and sounds of my mother's crying, I hatched an ingenious idea to stop the pain and suffering. Scared Dad. Clearly, he just didn't know how his actions made us feel, but if I scared him like he scared us, maybe then he would change his ways. I tried everything I could think of to produce some fright and scare Dad straight. I would hide and jump out at him, but he didn't even flinch. I placed the toy snake in the toilet, but that only resulted in a beating for me. Finally, I thought of destroying his alcohol. I know that people become scared when they lose something they love, so one by one I poured my dad's bottles down the drain and eagerly awaited his reaction. I knew this would be it. This would be the thing to scare him. That night, I remember my father discovering the empty bottles and becoming angrier
than I've ever seen him. I remember him wrecking the house, storming into my room. I remember his hands around my neck and me seeing black. Luckily, my planning and hard work that night paid off. Today, my father lives in constant state of fear. I'm always watching him, how timid and nervous he is at all times. Whenever I pay him a visit, his complexion turns a pasty white, his body shivers like I used to, and he breaks into a cold sweat. I scared my father so good, you'd think he saw a ghost.